you really have to have the right connections to make sure that you can actually get the loans and speak to the right people, which is what you've provided, which has been awesome. I would have been pretty stuck if I didn't know you, I think.
All right, Jolio, welcome. Let's start off with introducing yourself, who you are, and how you came across to me.
Hey everyone, my name's Joel. I'm currently living in Williamstown at the moment in Melbourne, working as an osteo, so I've been doing that for a few years. And I was looking to invest, and I wasn't sure exactly. I knew roughly where to start because property seemed like something that you can leverage, that you can grow a lot quicker than a lot of other things in a safer way, I guess you can say, or a less risky way. And I wasn't 100% sure of the next steps, and I saw your page online, and I saw, yeah,
Yes.
and you were talking about how to get people into the property market because there's a lot of tips for people about what you can do when you have a property already, and how you can leverage and how you can make more when you already have one. But there's not a lot of people talking about how to get the first one when you're already struggling, and that was the information that you were giving, which I found interesting. So yeah, that's how I got
Oh,
that's how I got into you. Yeah, so I heard your podcast, and you were pretty good.
all right. Let's get into the juiciness of that. So,
Mhm.
what do you think before you reached out to me? What was the thing that was stopping you from jumping on to realestate.com to buy your first property?
Probably trust and making sure that I was making the right decision. I'm a pretty careful person, maybe more than most people. So I always want to make sure if I'm making a big decision, I want to make sure it's a good one. And you seem like you are someone who's helped a lot of people make the first purchase. So I thought may as well start with that, right? Someone who's already helped already helped people in similar positions as me. So that's probably, I'd say trust was the hardest thing to make. Wasn't sure whether or not I was making the right decision.
Yeah, it's hard out there at the moment because there's so many people that are quite dogmatic with their approaches, where they're like, oh, you have to follow this strategy, you have to do that. I don't give a fuck what the
Mhm.
strategy is. I
Yeah,
just
it's the
essentially
results.
want
Yeah,
to build the right strategy for you
yeah,
in order to get you to your goals. So, okay, so for context, let's wind back a little bit. What do you do for work? So you're an osteo, you said.
yep, yeah. So I'm an
Now,
osteopath.
before you met me, though, you're an employee, weren't you?
I was employed as an osteopath, and as time went on, before I made the purchase, I changed to a subcontractor. And for those who
Yeah.
don't know, getting a borrowing capacity or getting a loan as a subcontractor, because you're seen as just a sole trader or a business owner, is very, very difficult, especially if you haven't held that position for, over 6 months, or if you haven't, had the ABN for over 2 years, it can be really, really tricky. You really have to have the right connections to make sure that you can actually get the loans and speak to the right people, which is what you've provided, which has been awesome. I would have been pretty stuck if I didn't know you, I think.
Do you know what I loved was that, so you came to me first of all, and then I think you said something about, I'm about to go out on my own, like leave your job to start this business and to be the contractor. Instantly, I was like, that is a major roadblock that we have to forecast out and we have to prevent and
Mhm.
make sure that we can basically map everything backwards because most Aussies go out there and just buy a property blindly, right? It's so easy just to
Yeah.
jump on realestate.com and just go fucking buy a house. You want to build an
Mhm.
entire portfolio and not get stuck. It all starts with the planning that you do at the start. And so a lot of that planning is around, loan structures and trust structures and understanding how the bank's going to judge you into the future. And when you first told me that, I was like, shit, we've got a lot. We have to move quickly. I remember that. And I
Mm.
was like, right, we've got a pre approval.
Yeah.
It's going to expire within 90 days. There's a lot of lenders out there for those who are watching. There's a lot of lenders out there who will give you a pre approval. And as long as you put in an offer on a property within that 90 days, they won't ask you to prove that you've got your income again. So technically,
Yeah.
you could have left your job, which is what we planned for you, which also meant during the hardest time of buying property and we're going to talk about your purchase price in a minute, buying property under $500,000 in 2024 is bloody challenging to find something inside the top 1% suburbs that we buy in.
Yeah.
And and so you timed it really well and you took action straight away, which is what I liked because I was like, if you don't get this next property job, I was like, you're not going to be able to buy a property for at least another 18 months because you need a full, as you were mentioning at the start, you need a full 12 months now. There's heaps of lenders out there who will lend to you for just 12 months when they're starting a new job, a new business,
Hmm.
which is essentially what you'd be going as a contractor.
Yeah.
But typically, when you're starting as a new contractor, also, typically, because it's a new business, most people aren't making money in their first year of business, right? They're lucky
Yeah.
just to break even.
Hmm.
But for you, I think you already had sort of contacts, didn't you? You already had
Yeah.
like
So
clients like
yeah. So essentially, as a subcontractor, I'm working at a clinic
that.
that already has a steady flow of patients coming in. And I guess it's up to you as a practitioner to hold on to those patients or to, to create more, be busier through word of mouth, advertising, things like that. But ultimately, as a business owner, they are paying you the patients that you see, so a percentage of each patient. So I'm coming in, with contacts with clientele that are already coming in. So a little bit different to someone who's just starting a new, a business on their own completely from scratch. But the bank still sees it like that. The bank still sees you as a business owner. So it's still just as challenging to get the borrowing capacity. Yeah, so
Yeah.
definitely.
And then when it comes to like doing your tax returns, I was like, okay, so you're starting this new thing at like the end of, it was like the start, when was it? Started 2024, wasn't it? You've been in it for like
Um,
6 months?
I I started the position in May,
Yeah, in May. Right. So
and in
last
May,
financial
but I
year.
spoke to you in, I think it was early, I think it may have been Jan or Feb. So by that stage,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
was an employee at a different clinic,
Yeah.
and it was all fine and well to get a borrowing capacity, but then things changed.
Yeah. And they changed very,
Mm.
very quickly. So I just
Yes.
remember this timing where it was such a wild time. You're like, leave this, my pre-approval's about to expire. I think it did actually expire, didn't it? Did yours
Yeah, it
expire? Like,
expired. Yeah, it expired,
yeah.
and then I thought, oh shit, I'm not going to be able to get a borrowing capacity. I'm going to have to wait the 18 months or whatever it is. And which,
Yeah.
as if people don't know, housing prices move up so quickly. It's just it gets harder and harder to buy something. So I thought, crap, I just need to get onto it soon. And
Yeah.
we ended up getting a borrowing capacity with my subcontract role, which was really tricky at first. But yeah, we spoke
Yeah.
to the accountant and the mortgage broker that you got me onto, and they made it happen,
Yeah.
which was I thought it was impossible, but they made it. Yeah, they made it work.
That yours was an extremely rare scenario. I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to extend this pre-approval or
I didn't make it
not.
easy
But
for them.
no, you didn't. But you know what? We love those type of things because sometimes the normal 9 to 5, just boring scenarios. I'm like, yeah, they're fine. But I like these juicy ones where they're like, if they're challenging, helps me
Yeah.
grow too. So Joel, so we bought a property for you for $375,000
Hmm.
in 2024. And your ROI, worst case scenario, is going to be 25%, just under 26%. How did you feel when you heard that?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing, and I think the fact that the company that you're working through is can provide you with so much, almost like a guarantee, right? You don't really hear that anywhere else. I've looked around pretty much everywhere, and you hear a lot of big names and a lot of buyers agents who make claims about their averages, or sometimes they can be skewed or manipulated and so on. But I don't think anyone
Yeah,
really offers a guarantee, a worst case.
yeah,
They usually say, it's subject to your own risk, blah, 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 which is fair enough, right? You can't always trust exactly what they're saying.
yep,
Or you can trust what they're saying, but you can't trust every single prediction. And
yep.
yeah, it gives an investor so much, assurance and confidence that things are going to be okay. And I think that's the thing that limits most people, especially me, is the idea that things might not be okay.
Well done for pushing through, though. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah.
And Joel, what do you think during our time working together?
Hmm.
What's been your biggest kind of takeaways that you've learned from me?
I think you mentioned that as an investor, you really have to be the project manager of everyone. And I
Oh,
thought,
yes, man.
and I thought, oh yeah, cool. You're kind of just you're overseeing things because you're almost like a business or the CEO, I guess, of everything working for you, of everyone working for you, right? You have your accountant, mortgage broker, the buyer's agent, conveyancer, and all these different terms that I knew of, but I didn't do. I did some research as I got more into it, and I realized how many moving parts there are, and it's not super complicated, but there's a lot of moving parts. So you just have to be on top of everyone. And that's just as simple as asking a question, reaching out, sending an email, and just saying, hey, just confirming that, this contract went through, or hey, is there anything else I need to follow up with? And it's not that difficult at all. It's just being aware that you have to be on top of everyone. And it's not a hard thing to do. like I said. So I'd say that's the biggest takeaway. Making sure that you're always on top of everything, understanding as much as you can, and making sure that you're speaking to the right people, good people, because there's a lot of people in every field, but if you're connected to the best ones, it just makes everything easier.
And Joel, just for context, how old are you?
I'm 30, so I turned 30 this year. Thank you.
Fun fact for those who are watching, because Joel, I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of people like much older than you that don't get the simplicity of actually you're just a project manager. Or I like to, or another way, another title I like to give my clients is an architect. So you're an architect and the person to say, right, what is the end solution? But an architect needs all this information. So to
Yeah.
your point, it's like you need to grab a bit of information from the broker, a little bit from your accountant, a little bit from your buyer's agent, a little bit from your coach. And it can be a bit confusing, a bit overwhelming because everyone might have conflicting answers. You have to like go down the rabbit holes of asking like, but why are you saying that's the answer? And
Yeah.
why not something else? You've got to be like a bit of an investigator. Then once you've got this person's response, that person's response, that person's, it's then your job to then ladder all that information up to then make the final decision, hence being an
Yeah.
architect and a project manager as well to move everyone along the line.
Exactly.
Because you're right, like no one else will give a fuck about your wealth than you. Same as with your health, right?
Yeah.
And you basically have to be on top of them, being like, guys, I need this, guys, I need that, guys, what's outstanding? What do you need from me? Like all the time, it just becomes part of the process.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that's really helped with that is when you do get conflicting things, which didn't happen too often actually, because everyone who I spoke to was quite aligned. But when I did get conflicting things or things I wasn't sure of, I could reach out to you and I would say, I can say to you, hey, I just got this quote, or someone mentioned this. What are your thoughts? And you could say, and you've been through everything before as well as invested yourself. So you've gone through the whole process and some, right? So your 2 cents is so valuable and puts my mind at ease. It put my mind at ease for sure. So yeah, it's all about getting information from everyone, and then and then asking you for your 2 cents and opinions just makes things a little bit easier again. Yeah.
Yay, I'm so glad. So, question for you. If somebody your age was watching this in a similar sort of situation to you, so they're thinking about going out on their own, they're young, they haven't bought a property because it's your first property ever,
Yeah.
and they're thinking about getting into property investing, what's one bit of advice you would give them?
I'd probably say I can give you 2 pieces of advice. It'll be
Go.
number one, you have to find what you want in life. And it's easier said than done. I don't think anyone really gives themselves permission to really think about what they want in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. People just kind of say, oh, I want to travel. But it's like, okay, where do you want to travel? Oh, this place. Okay, for how long? How much money you want to spend? Where do you want to go? It needs to be really, really specific. And I think if you can have a really detailed goal, an outlook on where you want to be in life, that makes things so much easier. A bit of a shout out to the Cashflow Co. So they're a company that I did a really short money course with, and there was basically identifying goals and what you want in life. And the hardest part of the whole journey, we did budgeting and investment strategies. We went over all these different things, but the hardest part was actually working out what you want in life. By far the hardest, but also the most exciting. Because every time I make a decision, I think about what I want in life, and it always, whenever I have to, do something difficult or basically put in a lot of effort into something, I think, why am I doing this? I always go back to what I want out of life. So I think I just always think about the goals.
What is your big goal? What is it that you want out of life?
A few big goals. Biggest one is separating work from life. I think I enjoy my work, but I want to be able to, not separating work, I'm like separating the money from work. So if I can work just for the enjoyment of work, then I think I'll enjoy it for a lot longer rather than constantly working just to make the money, because it just changes your look on on how I treat my patients. So I guess it's the same for anyone with work, right? If they're just working for the money, you don't get the appreciation of the work, the intrinsic value. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, and I don't really want to go down that road. So yeah, if I can invest and create a passive income, then I don't have to stress so much about that. I can do it for the enjoyment. So that's probably a big takeaway. And the other thing I guess advice I would give is time. It's the only thing that we can't get more of. You can get more money, you can get more of pretty much everything except for time. And I think a lot of people put it on the back burner, especially people my age, and go, I'll work it out later. But it's like the longer you leave it, the harder it gets. And it's actually fun. It's fun getting involved in this. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's so stressful, it's worrying. It's like, no, it's actually fun, because I'm thinking about the life that I'm building as opposed to just, oh, I see a lot of hard work for later. It's like, no, I'm working towards something I enjoy and it makes it fulfilling.
I love that. You're such a soulful guy, Joel. You're a big thinker. I
Soulful.
can tell.
I am.
Yeah.
I think a lot.
Where do you think you learned to appreciate time? Because not a lot of people learn to appreciate time as much as you.
I think I remember something at school. I reckon it was primary school years ago. I remember the teachers talking about, I think it was some lesson about work and occupations and how you can choose different jobs. And I just remember the teacher saying, most people hate their work or don't like their work. And I thought to myself, as a naive kid, I'm like, really? That's weird. I remember going home to my parents and asking like my uncle and just a bunch of people, I'm like, do you like your work? And they're like, not really. And I'm like, but you do it so much. They're like, yeah, I know. And I thought from that point onwards, literally until now, I thought, fuck that. I don't want to do a job that I hate, and I want to live a life that I don't, that I don't love. Um, so I think I've always taken steps to make sure that I'm doing something that I enjoy, that's fulfilling. Because one day we're going to be, 70 or 80 years old, and we're going to think, was that a good run? So yeah, that's probably why, why I think about that a lot.
That's quite deep. I used to think to myself all the time, like, the one person I'm always looking up to is future me in 5 years from now.
Mm,
Like, would
100%.
future me in 5 years from now be so proud of what I accomplished, or the impact that I made, or whatever, or the life that I lived, or the joy that I had?
Hmm.
And you're right. It's kind of weird how we're just so indoctrinated into thinking, I'm just going to swap my time for money, this thing that I can never get back. Can't buy it.
Yeah.
You never get to gain your time back. But yet we're just convinced to swap this most precious thing for this money, typically, which is for most people paying for a home or in an area that they don't like to live in, and also paying for a car, repayments for them to get to A to B, to get them to the thing that they don't like doing. I just think it's kind of bizarre.
Yeah. It is crazy.
But what
But
I
I guess
really love
people
is,
do what they're familiar with, hey?
yeah, they are. You're going to have a different outlook. Now that you've bought this property, you and I are about to jump off this call in a minute. We're just about to start planning for the second property in terms of what you need to
Hmm.
plan for. And those
Yeah.
two things, for those people watching us still, the two things that we'll be planning for is, number one, borrowing capacity, and number two is the capital for the next deal. It's always about those two numbers that we need to make sure we measure out. So what a cool combo job. I like this. So you're going to end up probably
Very
being one of
good.
those
Yeah.
guys, I hope, where you give me a call in like 10 years from now. Have I told you the story? And then I'm like, Jolo, when you have exited from the 9 to 5 matrix and you're truly doing what you desire to do for passion, not because of money, you've got to give me a call and invite me to a holiday. Deal? Invite me over to
That'd
your
be pretty
place
cool.
for dinner.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll agree to
How
that.
about
It's
that?
on camera now. It's recorded.
Oi, you're committed.
I'm committed. Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna pay you back
All
something,
right.
right?
I mean, you paid me back, but just by being an awesome client. Like, you were fun to serve. You asked me heaps of questions all the time. You leaned on me. We went deep on some things, and I think you took a lot away from it. And I can tell that if you just focus on the same two things that you really took away, if you just keep doing those things, project managing people, being the architect, and following some of those tips that I gave you around always getting the bank valuations on your properties, not making sure you don't rely on the real estate agent to
Mm-hmm.
quote you on what your rent really is and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
As long as you focus on those things, you'll do really, really fucking well in the next 5 years. We just got to go hard for the next 5 years. That's the focus.
Cheers, Liv.
All right, cheers, mate. Anything else you want to say to anyone?
So if you're thinking about getting involved, get educated and speak to people. Speak to people who have been in similar situations and have already done it. Start having conversations, because I think the longer you leave it, sometimes the further away it gets from you, and you end up not wanting to do it. So I think get involved as quickly as you can, because time's not going to wait for you.
Yeah. Amen. Good advice. All right, legend. Thank you so much.